Welcome back. We begin from Damascus, which says Turkish-led forces have attacked its troops in northeastern Syria. State media said Turkish troops and allied fighters attacked Syrian army positions outside the town of Tal Tamr. Syrian government claims some of its troops were killed in the attack by Turkish-led forces. Moreover, Kurdish-led SDF forces said 3 of its fighters were also killed in fighting with Turkish-backed forces. Meanwhile, President Tayyip Erdogan has demanded that the U.S. hand over YPG ringleader Mazlum Abdi to Turkey. In a televised interview, he alleged some NATO countries armed terrorists who have posed a threat to the country for 8 years. In an interview, Commander Abdi said his forces and the U.S. are discussing retaking positions in some areas of northeast Syria. Meanwhile, the U.S. says it will redeploy its troops to Syrian oil fields to protect them from a takeover by ISIS. President Donald Trump has also hinted at a realignment with SDF forces to keep Syrian oil out of ISIS hands. Now, Trump said he had a conversation with SDF commander Mazlum Abdi and told him to advance towards the oil fields. He said one of the most significant gains by the U.S. is the fight against ISIS was gaining control of all fields in eastern Syria. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said the Pentagon is preparing a plan to prevent Syrian oil from falling back into the hands of ISIS. Pentagon Chief Mark Esper has also advised Trump against a complete withdrawal of forces from the Middle Eastern country. At a NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels, Germany has proposed a security zone in northern Syria. Defense Minister Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer presented the plan after backing from Turkey and the US. Karrenbauer said status quo is not a satisfactory solution to the Syrian conflict. NATO head Jens Stoltenberg says Berlin's plan for a security zone might need to involve the United Nations. Defense Minister Karrenbauer said the zone will serve as a safety parameter for returning Syrian refugees. She said the zone will also need Russia's presence to protect displaced civilians and ensure the fight against ISIS. But she told NATO defense ministers that patrolling the northeastern border could not fall to Russia and Turkey alone. Top Kurdish commander Mazlum Abdi has thrown his weight behind the German-led plan. Meanwhile, Russian forces have started patrolling northeastern Syria. In Indian-occupied Kashmir, New Delhi has ordered shutting down 7 government commissions related to basic human rights. The commissions include the ones dealing with the right to information, rights abuses, and allegations against public functionaries. The order will take effect from October 31st. The date coincides with the practical enforcement of the bifurcation of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan's Foreign Office has summoned New Delhi's Deputy High Commissioner over India's unprovoked ceasefire violations. Yesterday, 3 innocent civilians were killed in cross-border shelling by Indian forces across the line of control. Speaking to India's Deputy High Commissioner Gaurav Ahluwalia, Foreign Office spokesperson Mohammad Faisal condemned the Indian aggression. Faisal said Indian occupation forces along the LOC and working boundary have continuously been targeting civilian populated areas. Faisal told Ahluwalia to respect the 2003 ceasefire arrangement and investigate these violations. Pakistan is observing Kashmir Solidarity Day to express unity with the oppressed people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Politicians and civil society are holding a protest rally in Islamabad to draw world attention towards New Delhi's atrocities in the occupied valley. Government employees have worn black armbands to protest the brutal lockdown of the valley. An environment of fear and uncertainty persists amidst night raids, torture, and mass incarcerations by Indian occupying troops. New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout has now entered its 82nd day. In Azerbaijan, over 24 heads of state and governments have arrived to attend the 18th Non-Aligned Movements Summit today. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi was received at the airport by the Deputy Prime Minister of Azerbaijan, Ali Akhmedov. The NAM summit is likely to focus on major reforms in the organization's structure, direction and functions. On Thursday, a ministerial meeting ahead of the summit identified terrorism as a threat to global development. The 120-member group makes up 55% of the world's population. NAM countries possess 75% of the world's oil reserves and 50% of its gas. Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will miss the summit a second time in a row. In Ethiopia, 16 people have been killed in protests against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Police said several others were injured in clashes as protesters burnt tires and blocked roads. Police fired gunshots and tear gas to break up demonstrations. Protesters gathered outside opposition activist Jawar Mohammad's residence for the second consecutive day. Tensions rose in the country after Jawar accused security forces of an assassination attempt. In a press conference, Jawar appealed for calm while accusing authorities of stoking instability. He said the federal police have attempted to carry out a major crime in a way that endangers the country. Police have denied reports of removal of Jawar's security detail, leaving him vulnerable to attack. Central African Republic says it is considering hosting a Russian military base. The country's president, Francois Faustin Archange Touadéra, shared the development in an interview. President Touadéra is in Sochi attending the African summit. Touadéra said he would like Moscow to supply his country with new weapons. The Central African Republic is emerging from years of bloody sectarian conflict. Dozens of African leaders are attending the summit aimed at expanding Moscow's influence in Africa. In Iraq, anti-government rallies have resumed in the second phase of protests that turned deadly earlier this month. Mass demonstrations against corruption and unemployment have claimed over 100 lives. Protesters gathered at Baghdad's Tahrir Square, calling for the country's entrenched political class to be uprooted. A few dozen headed towards the high-security Green Zone, which holds government offices and embassies. Security forces used water cannons to push them back. Other rallies erupted in southern cities of Divania and Nasiriyah as demonstrations vowed to remain in streets until the regime falls. Meanwhile, Iraqi Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi said people are free to protest, but violence would not be tolerated. In a televised speech, he announced a number of austerity measures, including reduction in salaries of lawmakers and presidency. The U.S. Senate has announced legislation calling for a complete ban on sale of crowd-control munitions to Hong Kong. Democrat Senator Jeff Merkley introduced the bill. He proposed a bill to prohibit U.S. companies from exporting non-lethal crowd control items to Hong Kong's law enforcement agencies. These include tear gas, pepper spray batons, and rubber bullets. Amnesty International says Hong Kong buys most of its riot police munition from U.S. manufacturers. Israeli forces have arrested 7 Palestinians from the occupied West Bank. In a statement, Palestinian Prisoner Society said Israeli forces demolished a house in Ramallah's Amari refugee camp. Following the demolition, clashes erupted and Israeli soldiers rounded up 3 Palestinians. 3 others were arrested in Nablus and another in Jenin district town in northern West Bank. Nearly 6,000 Palestinians, including women and children, are currently languishing in Israeli jails. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he will give lawmakers more time to debate the Brexit deal, but only if they agree to hold elections on the 12th of December. The Prime Minister says he expects the European Union to grant a short Brexit extension until the 15th of November. He urged the Labour Party to back elections in a vote he plans to hold next week. The EU is expected to give its verdict on Brexit's delay on Friday. France says it is willing to give the UK an extension for Brexit if London can explain why such a delay is justified. Meanwhile, Britain's Parliament approved Johnson's non-Brexit legislative programme. London police are aggressively pursuing investigation into the 39 dead bodies found at a lorry in Essex. 3 properties in Northern Ireland have been raided, while the lorry driver is under investigations for an additional 24 hours. Police says the lorry has been moved to a secure site. National Crime Agency says the scope of investigation has broadened to Ireland, Belgium and China. The process of post-mortem examinations of the dead bodies is taking place. Essex Police said it is the largest murder investigation in the force's history. Earlier, British police said all the 39 people found dead are believed to be Chinese. China's ambassador to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, said the embassy is in contact with the UK police. A worker of opposition party Muslim League has been stabbed to death in India's southeastern Kerala state. Police say 36-year-old man Mohammad Ishaq was attacked on his way back from the local mosque. Police confirmed ongoing clashes between Congress-led United Democratic Front and Communist Party of India in the recent months. CPIM District Committee has denied any involvement in the incident. Heavy contingents of police have been deployed after the Muslim League called for a shutdown in the district Malappuram today. We'll take a quick short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, raging fires are forcing mass evacuations from the U.S. state of California for the second consecutive year. 25 million Californians have been put on fire warning by state authorities. Winds fueled the blaze that has scorched over 10,000 acres of land in Northern California. Rescue agencies say the fire is spreading further. 500,000 residents are without power after Pacific Gas and Electric cut transmission to prevent further wildfires. Government officials say the fire is now moving some 75 miles north of San Francisco. California is still recovering from wildfires last year that killed about 100 people. A Palestinian-American NASA engineer has created buzz on the internet by posting pictures in her cultural outfit. Nujood Meransi posted her headshots on Twitter to celebrate her Palestinian identity. Meransi is part of the Orion spacecraft program, which will send the first woman to the moon. She posed for the headshot at the agency's Space Center in Houston, wearing a Palestinian culture-inspired blazer. Palestinian-American Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib says she is incredibly proud of Nujood and her work in expanding the space program. Migrants in Bosnia are waiting to be relocated as temperatures drop. Hundreds of migrants are bracing for the winter. More details in this report.
In Bosnia, a tent city built on a former garbage landfill hosts hundreds of migrants. There is no water for the inhabitants and the area is surrounded by woods.
4 kilometers, water problem.
To survive, residents must carry plastic bottles to a nearby village and ask locals for water. But the migrants' growing numbers is frustrating the settlers.
Jungle camp, no good. Problem, okay? Water, no. Okay? Fruit, no. Okay? Money, no. City go, police problem. Go Croatia, Slovenia problem.
Lack of food, water and medicines is making the situation worse.
I'm not animal, I'm human. Cameraman, I'm here in last 3 months. Cameraman coming, human rights coming, but no okay, no response. Why?
Bosnian authorities say they want to move the camp before winter hits, but have been unable to agree on a new location.
Here the situation must become absurd so that we can finally start to solve it, so that everyone can start doing their job.
The UN also criticized the camp's location, calling it inappropriate and inadequate, while the Red Cross has criticized Bosnian authorities for failing to provide medical facilities.
It is good to bring water to collect garbage, but who will take care of the large number of migrants with scabies, tuberculosis and hepatitis?
Scabies.
The Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights denigrated the camp's deplorable conditions and warned that the situation will be worse in winter. The international community is pushing Bosnian authorities to relocate the camp, which the migrants call a jungle.
And in Paris, fans are delighted over the launch of the new edition of French comic series Astérix and Obélix. Titled Astérix and the Chieftain's Daughter, the series has introduced its first female heroine in 60 years. More details in this report.
With her long red braided hair, black trousers, and grumpy teenage disposition, Adrenaline will keep Astérix and his oversized sidekick, Obélix, chasing her as she explores adolescent rebellion. Adrenaline is the teenage daughter of Vercingetorix, the chief of the Gallic village. Fans are excited about the new vivacious character.
It's always good to change mentalities a bit. So yes, it is good. And in Asterix, we don't really expect it because generally it's more of a male world, or there's Falbala, the pretty woman who disrupts everyone, but there's rarely a female character.
Asterix cartoonist Didier Conrad and Jean-Yves Ferry said they introduced the character to update the book's entertaining readers since 1959.
We're looking in new directions to come up with new ideas, because it's true that there have been a lot of albums, so we stuck to ideas that are too similar. We're going to fall into the same things, the same jokes.
The Asterix books have become a mainstay in the publishing industry, with 370 million copies sold worldwide. Translated in over 100 languages, the books have inspired a dozen movies and cartoon series, making them a global phenomenon.
And now some updates from the world of business. European markets are trading lower amidst growing concerns over lingering Brexit. Investors traded cautiously over UK's push for a fresh general election in December, while corporate earnings season remains in focus. London's FTSE 100 has dipped almost 0.5%. Pan-European stocks 600 fell 0.31%, with most indices slightly lower, but France's CAC 40 gained 0.3%. Food and beverage sector marked major losses after the world's largest beer maker reported lower than expected quarterly profit. Investors will be on the lookout for a survey of business climate indicator for Germany as Europe's manufacturing powerhouse flirts with recession. Germany's DAX fell 0.20%. South Korea has decided it will no longer seek special treatment by the World Trade Organization.
The fourth largest Asian economy has maintained its developing country status as a WTO member since 1995. Speaking in Seoul, Finance Minister Hong Nam-ki announced the decision.
The government decided not to seek special treatment as a developing country for future negotiations. At this decision-making process, first we recognize that we have authority to negotiate the sensitive items like rice. Second, we'd like to make it clear that we will not forego the developing country status, but is it not to seek any special treatment from the negotiations going forward.
Earlier in July, US President Donald Trump asked the WTO to recalibrate its criteria for designating developing country status. Trump criticized China for drawing WTO perks as a developing country despite being one of the world's largest economies.
Top US and China's officials will resume talks today in their latest attempt to calm a nearly 16-month trade row. US-China trade war has been roiling financial markets, disrupting supply chains and slowing global economic growth. US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin will talk to China's Vice Premier Liu He on the phone. The two sides are working to try to agree on a text for a Phase 1 trade agreement announced by US President Donald Trump. Trump has hinted that he could sign the Phase 1 agreement with China's President Xi Jinping next month at a summit in Chile. And now let's take a look at what the weather looks like around the world. For latest updates, you may follow us on social media at Indus.News.